You see all sorts of people, old men to young kids, riding around in golf carts and in neighborhoods. Most of us don't stop to think that they're moving vehicles, and you almost never have a seatbelt on when you're in one, and they're not crash safety test rated and all that good stuff like regular vehicles are. And I think just because they're associated with fun and sports like golf, that they're mostly not driven in traffic, that people see them as fun time vehicles and they don't treat them with the safety they probably should.
There are opportunities for our work and careers everywhere, if you know where to look. That's easier said than done, especially in our fast-paced and constantly changing world. Mary Ann Faremouth is talking to experts, employers, and job seekers to bring you insight and understanding about what's possible. This is Career Can Do, where we're navigating the new work world.
Welcome to the Career Can Do podcast, a top global podcast dedicated to helping you navigate the new work world. My name is Mary Ann Faremouth, and I'll be your host for this episode. And today I'm just delighted to have a guest on my show that I have the highest admiration and support for. Today's episode is all about giving back and safety. And Mark Contreras is the founding father of the Bo Cipra Foundation. The Bo Foundation exists to honor Bo Cipra and financially and emotionally support the petroleum industry families who have lost their primary providers. We have a major event, a golf tournament coming up on Monday, April the 28th of 2025 at the Wildcat Golf Club at 10 a.m. And I wanted to put Mark on the show today to be able to create more awareness about this event that also gathers together many in the pipeline service industry. I will say I had the pleasure to know Bo Cipra since he was a little boy. He played baseball with my son, Daniel Sandlin, and I've known him both in a personal and professional way for many years. And so I'm honored today to put this podcast out there. And after that long introduction, without further ado, help me introduce Mark Contreras. Mark, say hello to everybody.
Hi, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Well, Mark, it's my pleasure to have you here on the podcast. And, you and I go back. I've known you for a long, long time. I know your wife. I know your kids. You're a top-notch individual. And tell our listeners out there a little bit about what the Bo Foundation is. I mean, I think I've given a little bit of a tip of the iceberg of it, but can you explain to those out there what it is and why it was formed?
Sure. The Bo Cipra Foundation is a 501c3 charitable organization that we set up after my friend, my brother, Bo Cipra, passed away. It was really at the behest of his parents, all of his friends in the oil and gas industry, and all of his friends that had known him for many years, even before that, all wanted to do everything we could to have his name live on. And we asked his parents what they thought about that, about what they thought we could do. And some of the ideas that they gave us kind of morphed into what we have in the foundation. That's how we started.
Well, I know that you knew Bo for a long time and you had so much respect for him and admiration and was like a brother to him. But give our listeners out there a little bit of a background about who Bo Cipra was.
Yeah, Bo was an amazing man. He was a father to two beautiful young girls, Reese and Isla. He was a son to two parents. They're just amazing Christian people, Marshall and Ted. He was a brother to his sister, Laura. I say he's my brother, but really I'm not blood related. We were just best buds, and that's how we thought of each other. And, he was the best friend to many people. Everyone that he knew seemingly thought he was their best friend. I like to say that there's a lot of men that have one friend in their whole life, and his name is Bo Cipra. And there's a lot of women who have one true love in their whole life, and his name is Bo Cipra. So he was that kind of guy. Like I said, I felt like he was my brother for all the time that I knew him. He was an excellent salesman and supervisor in the oil and gas industry. And just like all of his friends, everyone in the industry that knew him loved him, and they still love him. I could tell you lots of things about Bo, but the thing that made him special enough to have a foundation named after him and to be the topic of your show here, is that he was just a good guy. There's a lot of ways people can say that. You hear people say, oh, he'd give you the shirt off his back, or he was always there for you, that kind of thing. But the bottom line with him is he was a genuinely beautiful person with a beautiful soul, and he made everyone around him feel very special, which was a true gift that most don't have.
He really did. And I knew him for a long, long time. And, the one thing I always knew about Bo is that he always wanted to help somebody. All right.
Yes.
He always
Yes.
wanted to be there, to be supportive, to help people. And I've seen him do it in many ways. As I said, I'm just honored to have you on the show today because Bo was all about giving back. Bo was all about, how can I help you? What can I do to help you? Whether it was in his job, whether it was with his friends, people just like to be around him. He had this wonderful energy about him, this caring spirit that, I think if more people had that, we'd have even a nicer world than we do now. But anyway, I know this organization, this foundation was obviously set up to provide awareness about safety too, and also to give back. But Mark, tell us a little bit about that aspect of it, about promoting golf cart safety. Tell us a little bit why that's an ingredient of this foundation.
Yeah. So when Bo died, it was in a tragic manner, and that involved the use of a golf cart, misuse of a golf cart, I should say. And a lot of people don't seem to know how dangerous golf carts can be. And before this happened, I would have had to count myself among them. What we found is there's hundreds of golf cart accidents every year that result in death and severe injury. That's another thing I didn't know that we all unfortunately know now. And the reason why we think that this is something that could be spread to more people is, you see all sorts of people, old men to young kids, riding around in golf carts and in neighborhoods. Most of us don't stop to think that they're moving vehicles, and you almost never have a seatbelt on when you're in one, and they're not crash safety test rated and all that good stuff like regular vehicles are. And I think just because they're associated with fun and sports like golf, that they're mostly not driven in traffic, that people see them as fun time vehicles and they don't treat them with the safety they probably should. Another big part of it is that people drink alcohol when they drive them. It's practically encouraged while you're playing golf, at least in America. And people don't think anything of crashing them into trees and ditches. And, you can find on videos, all sorts of videos online about, people think it's funny to crash them into bodies of water like lakes and rivers. And it might not be as dangerous as driving 95 on the freeway, but they're every bit as dangerous, if not more so than that, when you crash them. So all those things are reasons why we wanted to spread the message, because it's associated with how Bo died, and we want to make sure that nobody else has to experience that sort of tragedy.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And I think it's important, Mark, that people understand the safety element of playing golf. I mean, of playing any sport, but, playing golf. I think you've hit on a lot of good, important tips here and points here about, being a little reckless and not realizing what the consequence of that could be. The other thing, too, that I think is so great, I do a lot in my business with the pipeline service industry. And I believe that people in our industry, buy from people they know and trust. And I think an event like this golf outing, brings people together, yes, to play golf, yes, to have fun, but yes, to get to know people, to network, don't you think? Isn't that an aspect of it as well?
Yeah, no question about it. Most of the people that we have in the golf tournament had some sort of relation to Bo in the industry, which is another testament to how he lived his life. I mean, he's just one of those people that, he could go anywhere and he'd know somebody there, no matter where you were. You could be at a grocery store, sporting event, whatever, he'd know somebody there. And, all of those people that knew him in the industry and loved him, they are at the tournament. But then also, like you said, now that this will be the third year that we've had the tournament, there are, plenty of people that maybe didn't know him firsthand, but through the connections that those people have made in the golf tournament the prior couple of years are going to come out to our golf tournament. So it goes exactly to your point there that, yes, it's a great way to network. It's a great way to meet people and share business that way.
Oh, I think it is. And I think it's going to be this year on a Monday. It's April the 28th. And yeah, the people that are listening out there, if they want to enter into it, is there a website they can go to? Or, I mean, all of the information will be on my website, faremouth.com. But if they want to inquire about how they could possibly come and play golf or be a contributor of it or make a donation, how can they do that, Mark?
Yeah, so we have a website. The foundation has a website. It's www.thebociprafoundation.org. And yeah, you can go on there and sign up for a team. We're getting close to the end here. So if you want a team, then I'd encourage you to quickly sign up. But we're always looking for volunteers to help, and donations are always appreciated. It definitely goes to a good cause. It's not just golf cart safety that we're focused on. We also, honor Bo and the life he lived by financially and emotionally supporting, petroleum industry families who've lost their primary provider, which is another reason why we receive so much support and help and love from the oil and gas industry, because we're giving it right back to them to the people in their industry that need it the most. So
No, I think, I'm honored to be a recruiter in this industry because there's so many wonderful people and they do a lot to help others and to give back and all this and that. And the one thing I think that's so great too, Mark, about this organization is that you've created a scholarship foundation for these two little girls that were left without a dad at a very young age. Can you talk a little bit about that? Where some of the money could go?
sure, yeah, we've given financial support to grieving families, college-bound athletes, little league sports organizations, bereavement centers, and the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. Specifically, your question there, we have set up trust funds for Bo's children, Reese and Isla, but they're definitely not the only recipients in the oil and gas industry that receive these funds. We've been able to donate to other people that tragically have had their father pass away. They were oil and gas guys, and we were able to give to them as well and set their families up for the future and try to relieve some of the financial burden that happens when these tragedies happen.
Well, Mark, I just think that this is such a wonderful organization and foundation. And people like you and some of the other starting members of this, and I have to say, I'm proud of my son, Daniel Sandlin, to be included in that. You all have done a great thing here and you're helping so many. But I think also you're creating awareness about, yes, as I said earlier on, we all have to work, we have to make a living, but how can we help somebody else? How can we learn lessons from someone that was outstanding, that was a real special person, a leader in the industry, but also a person that had so much respect from family and customers and friends. And that's who Bo Cipra was. So I feel so honored to have this opportunity to have you on the show, Mark. And I know that you do a lot for the organization. And did you start it yourself thinking of the needs or what it would provide, or how did this all get started? Was it something all you guys got together one night and said, let's do an organization, or how did it all get together?
Yeah, no, I definitely didn't start it myself. Don't want to don't want to take credit for that because a lot of Bo's very close friends came together to start this in his memory. As a matter of fact, I would say, even though I happen to be the one talking to you here today and very honored to do so, that a lot of the guys that were friends with Bo do a lot more behind the scenes than I ever could commit time to because they're very talented. They're all in oil and gas. I don't happen to be in that industry, but they're very talented guys. They're great salesmen. They're great at putting things like our golf tournament together. So they do all sorts of things that I couldn't dream of doing as well as they do. So definitely don't want to take credit for the whole organization. But yeah, like I mentioned before, we wanted to do something that both honored Bo and gave some relief to his parents and his daughters, of course, and his sister. We wanted to do something that they would be proud of just as well as he would be proud of. And right after that tragic time happened, we used one thing that Bo loved, which is a game of golf, and we said, well, let's put on a tournament and maybe raise funds for all these different things that we had in mind that we would raise funds for, and it kind of turned into the idea for a 501c3 charitable organization. And like, if you want to know who started it, Tim Schumacher is a guy who has a lot of connections and knows a lot of things that maybe us younger folks wouldn't have been able to figure out. So Tim was very instrumental in getting all the legal aspects of a 501c3 set up, and his friends, I could name everybody on the organization, but maybe we don't have too much time for that. But his friends, we brought all their talents together, and what we've done in 3 years now, almost 3 years now since he passed, I think is pretty good for where we started. And I think it was all to honor him and the way he lived his life.
Oh, I think that's wonderful. Well, as I said earlier, I'm so thrilled to be a part of the Bo Foundation. I think it's a wonderful event every year, and to see all these people come together and really want to make a difference and make an impact on helping others, I think is great. And, Mark, as we talked about in the Blue Room, we all have to get up and go to work. We all have to do what we have to do in our lives. But I think when we can give back, when we can help somebody else, when we can make a contribution to help somebody else's load be a little lighter, I think it's a win-win for everybody. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think when you give back, you change your life just as much as you might change someone else's life. I think that's a great point that you made there. And, the best examples of happy people I can think of are those that are selfless people. And Bo was that way. And now that we have this foundation, I think we're all trying our best to be that way as well. And when you volunteer, we often think about volunteering as doing it on Christmas Day at a soup kitchen or something like that. And that's kind of an idea that a lot of people have in their head. But really, It doesn't have to be that. It can be something as simple as making the life of someone else that you admire and respect or love, help them up when they're down. And that's something I've definitely taken away from this. Something I've learned is you can make a real difference by doing something even small for someone else. And big things come out of that too.
I agree. Well, Mark, we're nearing the end here of the podcast, and I always like to leave the listeners with two salient points of what they can take from this, digest, and go further and, into the future with. What would you say those two salient points could be for this episode?
Well, first, we've discussed this before, you and I, just the safety of anything you do is very important. You kind of don't think about it, especially when you're having fun at something like golf or something. You don't think about safety, but boy, particularly when you're talking about work, if you don't watch out for safety aspects, that can always come back to bite you. And everyone's always better when you do consider safety. And then of course, the other important point that I think I could leave people with is, volunteerism or giving of yourself or giving back to your community, however you want to phrase it, is something that can change your life for the better. And not just helping other people, you're also helping yourself. But I think those are two good things to always try to remember.
Oh, I think that was so well said. Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate you taking out of your time, out of your day today, out of your job to be on Career Can Do. I know all of this information will set well with so many people out there. And if you're listening and you can attend this wonderful golf outing on Monday, April 28th, please do, because you'll have fun. You'll meet a lot of great people, and you're going to be making a contribution to something that is so wonderful and good for so many. So this will all be on my website, Faremouth.com, and Mark's information and his website will be noted there as well. So Mark, thank you so much today. As I said, I'm just so touched and honored that we did this today. And I really appreciate you and all the people that are working so hard to make this tournament a success. So thank you so much. And we're near the end here. We'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye. We thank you for tuning in to our Career Can Do podcast. We make no guarantees on results for your particular quest, but we hope you enjoy the information presented. The views and opinions expressed in this program are solely that of the guest or speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Mary Ann Faremouth and Faremouth & Company. Thank you.